Good morning, everybody. Rob here in Bakersfield, California. Welcome to this week's Throwback Thursday. This week is going to be a story from my past. It's going to be about getting hassled by the cops. Back when I was 19 years old, which is probably before most of you were even born, I got my very first Harley. It was a chopper. It was a 59 FLH panhead and a 40s rigid frame that had been raked and molded. It had a 6-over Springer front end on it, fishtail pipes, suicide shift, which means it was a clutch, foot clutch on the left side, and you reached down with your hand and put it into gear. It had a Bowie knife that was welded to the shift cog. You just dropped your hand down there and popped her into gear. And it had a little peanut style Sportster gas tank on it. And over the years I made changes to it, mostly paint. And simple stuff. Built a new seat, sissy bar, rebuilt the engine and transmission, things like that. So where I learned to ride a big bike and work on Harleys. Now it also did not have any turn signals because they weren't legally required for that age of a bike, by California law. It did not have a front brake because that was not required, and it did not have a speedometer because that was not required. So not having a front brake on it made it a whole lot of fun riding that suicide shift when you had to come to a stop on a hill. There was no such thing as stopping on a hill. You had to do what we call a California roll through the stop signs or stoplights. And had to keep my eyes open for local police so I didn't get busted for rolling through the stoplights and stop signs. Always had to make a lot of right-hand turns real quick sometimes. Most of the time I'd just run through on the yellow light though. And also back then that was before helmet laws, so I did not wear a helmet. My standard gear back then was a pair of cowboy boots, Levi jeans, and a white t-shirt covered up by a leather motorcycle jacket. And I still have that jacket today. And yes, it still fits, though it is a little bit tight around the middle. But I was skinnier back in them days. Anyways, it was your typical looking badass chopper. And I was your typical long hair looking biker type kid. And every time I went for a ride on that bike, back and forth to work or on the weekends for fun, I would get pulled over and stopped by the police. Now that could either be the local police, the CHP, or the county sheriff. It didn't matter. Anytime anybody saw me, they'd pull me over. First thing they'd do is they'd want to run the numbers and check the VIN numbers, ID, and all that, make sure it wasn't stolen. Well, now the thing is, on bikes that age, the frames only had manufacturing numbers on them. The frames did not have VIN numbers back then. The VIN number was the motorcycle engine number. That's what it was registered off of. So you could basically take the engine and put it in any frame you wanted to, and it was totally legal. Also, the transmission did not have any numbers on it other than your parts numbers from Harley-Davidson, identifying what year it was and so forth. So you could take them and move them from back and forth. But now at one point I had done mine. The frame was all molded in up at the neck where the frame numbers were for the year of manufacturing and such. Was not really an identification number. Well, that was all molded in, so you couldn't see the frame numbers anyway. transmission, the numbers had been sanded down and it had been polished. So the aluminum transmission case was a nice shiny polished case. Almost show quality chrome, but not quite. So the only numbers that they had on the bike they could check was the engine numbers. And I can't tell you how many times I had arguments with the police over the fact that there was no other numbers on the bike, and that's the way it was, and that was legal, and I didn't have to have turn signals, and I didn't have to have a speedometer, and I didn't have to have a front brake. Well, I finally got tired of it, and I went and I got a print off of the DMV for that year stating that the bikes were registered by engine numbers and that that bike that old did not require turn signal, speedometer, and front brake. And I carried that with me in my wallet so I could educate the police who had no idea. Because most of them were not bikers, had no clue. And of course, the standard thing would be is, oh, well, you fit the description of a biker we're looking for a crime, you know. Well, of course I did, you know. White male, long hair, on a chopper. I mean, do you know how many thousands of white male, long hair chopper riders there were in San Diego County? Quite a bunch. So, you know, they would run me through the computer system, see that I had no criminal record, and they'd run the bike, see that it wasn't listed as stolen, check me for tattoos, which I didn't have any. They'd want to know what gang I belonged to, and I didn't belong to any gang. And, you know, whether they believe me or not, I don't know. I don't think some of them did, but who gives a shit? Anyways, the worst case of this ever happening was one day I got off of work. I was working for the Escondido Times Advocate in Escondido, which is part of the Tri-City, North County area of San Diego County. But I lived in Oceanside. So I didn't get more than about 6 blocks from work before I got pulled over by the Escondido police. Wasted a good 20 minutes going through the whole goddamn thing, you know, having the numbers checked, getting my license checked, running a background check on me over the radio, all that shit, right? Got let go. And next, I'm flying down the freeway, just getting into San Marcos. I'll get pulled over for the county sheriff. Same damn thing. You know, runs the numbers on the engine, runs my license through the computer, gives me the whole bullshit rundown, blah, 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 right? Turns me loose, lets me go. I didn't get more than maybe 5 or 10 miles down the road. I hadn't even gotten back to Oceanside yet, or Vista. I hadn't even gotten to Vista yet, before Oceanside. And I get pulled over by the CHP. Okay, now, that's the 3rd time in less than like half an hour or an hour. If you count all the time I spent sitting on the road while them running me, it was probably an hour. So I was a little pissed. And I guess it showed. You know, because I pull my gloves off, I throw them on the damn ground, I get off the bike, I turn around, I look at the guy, and I got my hands on my hips. And I'm a little pissed. He comes up and wants to know what the hell my problem is. And I tell him, well, you're the 3rd one to pull me over in less than an hour. And I'm getting sick and tired of it. Why don't you guys get together and figure this crap out and quit hassling me? Well, you know, that don't faze him none. He's still going to run the whole check on my bike because he don't believe me. So he runs the numbers, gives me the whole rash of shit. Well, where's your frame numbers? Blah, blah, blah. I had to show him the paper from the DMV, you know. And we're all done. Okay, they ain't got nothing they can get me on either, so they gotta let me go. Well, his whole thing at the end is, you know, if you got a haircut and you put a speedometer and turn signals and all this other kind of crap on your bike, maybe you wouldn't get pulled over all the time. I said, well, that's a bunch of bullshit. You're gonna pull me over anyways. And they did. Because a few months later, I got promoted at work, and I had to start wearing dress pants, long sleeve shirt, and a tie to work. And it looked kind of stupid wearing the leather jacket with all that stuff, so I started just wearing a Marine Corps field jacket over the white shirt and tie, you know, keep them clean for work. And I had to get my hair cut, because I was now a district manager in the circulation department. So I had to look the part. And I still got pulled over. But I'll tell you, it was funnier than hell when I get pulled over and I would unzip that Marine Corps field jacket, and there I'd be in a shirt and a tie. That guy don't belong on the frickin' road. Jesus. So, I knew about getting hassled by the cops and being a biker. I wasn't an outlaw biker, but I considered myself a biker. And it didn't matter what my bike looked like or what I looked like. I got pulled over and hassled all the time. So, when I got older and I became a cop, it gave me a much better understanding of how bikers feel when they get pulled over all the time. So I didn't just randomly pull people over just because they were on a bike. The only time I pulled over anybody on a bike was when they were doing something illegal and stupid. Now there were times I pulled over to help stranded bikers, and they would be shocked as hell that I was there not to hassle them, but to try and offer them help. And it's just, that's the way it should be, you know? Anyways, that's my little story. I hope it gives you all a little bit of understanding about my past. Why I think the way I do. If you like my story, hit the like button, make some comments, subscribe, and come on back next week. See y'all later. Bye-bye.